Our next speaker is actually an alumnus of the business school himself, and he is the newly appointed director of the Lang Entrepreneurship Center at the business school. Please join me in welcoming my friend and colleague, Vince Ponzo.
Thanks, Dave. It's good to see everybody. Thanks for coming out. Whoa. Note to all the other speakers, this thing moves. I want to thank President Bollinger. Thank you, Catherine, for your opening remarks. And thank you to all the students, faculty, administrators that really helped make this complex endeavor possible. This is truly an amazing day and a watershed moment for entrepreneurship here at Columbia. And of course, I'd also like to give a tremendous thank you to our sponsors and to Barnard for their support and generosity. We've got a great lineup today, which is part of the reason why I'm pretty sure none of you came here want to hear me speak, so I'll keep it brief. Entrepreneurship has deep roots here at Columbia, and that is especially true at the business school. The entrepreneurship program was launched at Columbia Business School almost 20 years ago, and it was soon solidified with the support of Eugene Lang and his donation to establish the Eugene Lang Center for Entrepreneurship in 2000. Dean Hubbard, who actually served as the first faculty director of the Lang Center, has continued championing and supporting entrepreneurship throughout his tenure. And during the Lang Center's 14-year existence, we've helped launch and support literally hundreds of businesses that touch every single corner of the economy and society. And while the definition of success varies from entrepreneur to entrepreneur, there are a few businesses that unequivocally succeed in the marketplace and also in making the world a better place along the way. Today's first keynote, Shazi Visram and her company Happy Family, is one such example. Happy Family launched on Mother's Day, May 2006, while Shazi was a student at the business school, and she's been leading the company through successive stages of growth and accomplishment ever since. To top it off, Happy Family not only makes a difference in the way parents think about feeding their family with the use of organic, sustainably farmed and packaged foods, they also make a difference by donating a portion of their profits to feed and by feeding a starving child in Africa with every Happy Family purchase. Shazi's list of accolades and recognition is long, so I'm not going to recite them all. But when Fast Company calls you a rock star of the new economy, when Ernst & Young recognizes you as the Entrepreneur of the Year for the New York region, and when President Obama invites you to the White House, you must be doing something right. So without further delay, I'd like to introduce everybody to Shazi Visram.
Thank you, Vince. That was very kind of you. I have not timed my notes here, so I'm gonna, if at some point you guys get tired of me, just somebody come push me off the stage. First, I want to thank you all for having me, and really I'm just so excited to be here because I think this is a tremendous moment for the whole campus to get together and celebrate entrepreneurship, because I think it's the fabric of what makes our world a better place, or certainly what can drive social change. My plan is to tell you guys a little bit about my story and hopefully share some of the lessons that I've learned along the way, because there have been a few. So my mom and dad came to America in 1979. I was 3. They both came from countries where they lived with dirt floors under their feet. And they both, yet without having real educations of their own, knew how important it was to bring their family here so that, you know, we could have an opportunity bigger than a dirt floor. And so they brought us here, my brother and I, and the dream was for me to be able to one day maybe do something bigger. So we moved to Birmingham, Alabama, and obviously. And I mean, I actually really liked it. But, you know, I had a pretty great childhood, and I came to Columbia for undergrad. So I went here in 1995, graduated in 99. And that's really the first part of my story with Happy, is that it's this area, this place that I think of kind of fostering a sense of creativity in me that never really left. And in a sense, it goes back to what President Bollinger said about ideas, and then my business school side of life is a part of executing ideas. So I was a visual arts undergrad. I did a lot of probably illegal things that are now becoming more legal. I was not your typical, I mean, I did well because I was smart, but I was not super motivated. I really wanted, I mean, I was motivated to be creative. I really wanted to paint pictures. And I spent a lot of time dreaming of bigger things, but I don't think at the time my parents were that psyched about the sacrifices they made, given that I just wanted to be an artist. And not that there's anything just about that, it's phenomenal. But so here I was in New York and, painting a lot of pictures, and I realized I had to fund my painting habit and get a job. And for about 3 years, I worked in the real world, and I learned a few things. I learned that business is an absolute, ultimate creative exploration if you want it to be. And in a sense, starting a business could be like creating the ultimate work of art that lives and moves in real time and can really affect change in a different way than a painting or even a piece of music. And I also learned that I had worked for some folks that just didn't share the same values I had, and that life is really short, and you guys are really special, and you have such amazing talent. And even at that young age, I knew that I did, and that I didn't want to waste it working for someone whose ideals and values didn't match my own. And so, totally unrelated to what I thought I would ever do, I decided to go to business school so that one day when I would have an idea for that very creative business, I could then have the tools in my toolbox to kind of make it happen and on a bigger scale. And while I was at business school, I had this conversation that was like a life-changing moment. And I had been studying the green movement and green business and had always been focused on entrepreneurship, but really got into thinking about children's issues and children's health. And at the time, and the rates are getting a little bit better, but 33% of children would get adult onset diabetes by the age of 12 if they ate the standard American diet. Also, 1/3 of children were obese. 16% of toddlers were obese. Autism, ADD, ADHD, all these neurological disorders were just epidemically on the rise. And I knew that there was something there that could be done. And one day I had this conversation with a friend who was telling me how she really felt guilty about not making her own baby food for her 2 twins that she had just had, fresh at homemade from organic ingredients she got at the farmer's market. And I was just like, well, that's a lot of pressure. You're not a bad person, Camille, just because you can't do that. But what if there was something better? And she said, well, I would buy it in a heartbeat. So I started talking to people, asking other moms what they thought. And I started looking into, what was going on in the world of baby food. Because at the time I didn't have a baby, and now I do have one, so it's even more special to have this company. But what I found was there was this jar of baby food that had been around since the 1930s. You guys all probably think of jar of baby food and kind of wrinkle your nose, not that appealing. And the reason you do that is because jars were invented in the 30s to be cheap and convenient, but not to be super premium, taste great, or be full of nutrition. And the way they make a jar traditionally is you take, a lot of times you take a drum-dried powder. So something might start out as fresh peas from the field. It quickly gets turned into a drum-dried powder, which is cheap and easy to store. And then they take that powder and they cook it in the jar for about 30 minutes, 350 degrees. And what you get is something that can sit on the shelf for 3 years. So it's kind of crazy. It's your baby's first experience of fresh whole food, and it's a food that could have been in the world much longer than he or she. And I thought, well, there's got to be something better. And, we all have innovative ideas. But the more I looked into it, it wasn't just that could be something better. It could be something that could actually change this trajectory of children's health. By programming better taste profiles from the very first bites, you can actually create a different blueprint for health. And so I got really into this and decided this was my path. And I went to this man who's not in the room today, but he's a representative of the Lang Center, Cliff Schorer. And I said, Cliff, he's the executive director of the Entrepreneurship Center, I think is his title, something like that. And I said, Cliff, I have this idea, I want to change the world with organic baby food. And he was just like, okay, that sounds interesting, let's talk about it. And he said it was going to be really hard, and food businesses are really hard, and I can attest to you that they are. But from that moment on, that guy and everybody at the Lang Center just gave me everything they had. I mean, Maida sitting here, she's been with me it's been 10 years. I mean, I've come in there crying, like it's just, but there's always been so much support, because once you want to do something that's meaningful and you're passionate about it, here's one of the tips. Like, it's infectious, and ask people for help because they want to help you, because it feels good. I mean, I'm that way. Anyway, so I graduated in '04, and I never looked for a job out of business school. It was just going to be the happy baby, was going to be my life. And it took me a while to get launched. It took me a while to raise some money. I raised $550,000 from friends and family. I think that round there were like 39 people to raise the $550K from. So there were some checks as small as $2,500. But you do what you got to do. And as Vince said, we launched on Mother's Day of 2006. And the product that we launched with, the thing that I could come up with as this alternative to that jar, was this frozen line of baby food. So we had this little ice cube tray that we created, and it was like 6 cubes of Yes Peas and 6 cubes of Thank You Carrots, and they were bright, fresh colors. It was frozen, and it was delicious, but nobody bought it. And I mean, I know, so when you guys make projections, usually by year 5, it's like, what's the average? 50 million in sales is your year 5 goal? That was my goal. I mean, my goal was I want to change the way children are fed in our country and create a nationally impactful brand that gives back for every unit of anything we sell. And that year we did $116,000 in sales. I mean, not terrible, but not what I wanted to do. And I tell you this because there were so many hard times, and nowadays people hear our story and you hear the net results and the Obama quote and and it sounds like, it's just been easy street. And I will tell you, I have had my credit card so maxed out that I couldn't get one swipe on the subway. I've had to borrow money from my, not very wealthy parents, as you heard, to pay for payroll. Once I saw it within a month that frozen line was just not moving, we had to pivot and innovate and change. And what I realized is we weren't going to change consumer behavior in the freezer, and we had to keep trying elsewhere. So the next idea was to launch this first ever cereal for babies that had probiotics and DHA. It was revolutionary. Now everybody on the market does it. Gerber has one, which is really flattering. We basically started pivoting. So we launched the dry line, and 2007, we ended up doing $520,000 in sales. 2008, we did $2.1 million in sales. We launched our very beloved puff snacks for babies that some people call baby crack, but they're organic, gluten-free, little melt-in-your-mouth puff snacks that teach tactility, and they're phenomenal. The whole time, it was a struggle, but it was also very rewarding, because you're kind of living on this roller coaster, and for those of you who like to ride the roller coaster, I mean, the highs are really high, and then the lows are really low. The debt, it was definitely a lot to shoulder, and one of the things I'd say for any of you who are on this path or going to be on this path is get a lot of confidence, because you should have it in yourselves, and take care of yourselves, because it's stressful. So I'm going to tell you two more stories and then kind of wrap up. So in 2009, I was pregnant. I was sleeping on a yoga mat in my office on the floor to take naps so I could stay at the office longer because our office was in Brooklyn and my house was in Jersey City, or my apartment. And I got this email on a Sunday night from a colleague who said, you know, there's this competition that American Express is doing called Shine a Light. You should sign up. So I realized I only had 2 hours for this deadline that had been going on for 6 weeks. And I wrote this nice description of our business, focusing on innovation, giving back, and customer service, which we do in spades. And we also have a group of 70 moms that we employ around the country and all sorts of great things. At the time, there's 40 moms, and which is important because after I hit submit, it said, well, you need 50 endorsements in order to get to the next level of the competition. And I'm like, well, I have like 40 minutes. So I emailed the 40 moms and everybody on my wedding contact list. And by midnight, we had 52, and I was good. And of course, like off to the next thing. So 2 weeks later, I'm in California. I got a call from someone at NBC, and she said, I'm from NBC. We're doing this competition to find the most inspiring business in the country, and you've been selected as one of 3 finalists out of 5,700 entries. At the time, I think I said, shut the F up, is what I think I said. I'm pretty sure I did. Because I couldn't really believe it. And she said, what are you going to do tomorrow? I said, I'm going to be in Boston. So they filmed this commercial of me. You can Google it. It's kind of funny. I sound very nasally. Or maybe I sound that way in real life, and I just don't want to admit it. But so they filmed this commercial of me. I'm pregnant. I'm in a store, and I'm talking about how proud I am of our business. And they air it for 3 weeks, national TV, huge. I mean, they put $10 million in media behind it. And it was this competition to highlight, you know, the most inspiring business in the country. And we actually didn't win. There was another company that won at the last minute. But I still thought it's the biggest thing that ever happened to us. I'm so glad I participated in that. Our sales definitely saw a bump. And in 2009, as I said, we did 6.2 million, I think. So anyway, I kind of forgot about it. About a year later, I have my son, Zane, and I get another call from American Express. And they say, we're doing this video documentary about businesses that inspire. You think we could follow you around for a few days? I said, yeah, sure. So they send out the director and the producer to meet me, and they both have films at Sundance. So American Express, you know, they roll big, but I didn't think they would roll that big for a web documentary. And they end up following me around for 5 days. We have a whole production schedule. We shoot a lot of cute babies eating our products. And then the one big thing that I forgot to tell you guys about before this happened is while we were innovating that whole time and while I was raising money that whole time, and we were on the cusp of needing to raise about $8 million to fund a very big project, we finally found the alternative to the jar. And it had taken about 4 years. But it's this pouch of baby food. It's 10% of the carbon footprint of a jar. It's super convenient, so it's asking mom to trade up to something more special and easier than a jar. And then the quality of the food is phenomenal. And you can see ours is really cute. So this is a pear whale with a broccoli blowhole and peas raining down. So I finished my story. So what happened is I do the shoot with these guys. I decide that we have to raise money, and this time, and I had at that point raised about $8 million, $9 million in little fits and starts, like I had explained with our seed round. But $8 million all at once just seemed like too much, but we needed to fund this because this was going to be big. And we had competition coming. And so I started talking to some private equity guys that were not my favorite choice for the business, but honestly, I didn't know where else to turn. But I was worried that they would change the mission of what we were doing. And at the same token, or at the same time, I had this invitation to go to Africa to win this award in Cape Town. And I used it as an opportunity to take my mom and dad back. And at the time, I mean, I had a life savings of, I don't know, like $20,000, and I spent it all on this trip to give my mom and dad a good time. And especially my dad, because he's from Africa, and I just wanted to do something special. And it turned out to be very special because when we were on safari in the middle of the bush, my dad had a heart attack. And sorry, I just lost him. So it's usually I say, well, it's okay because he's okay now, but he just passed away. So, but anyway, we get stuck in Africa. He gets misdiagnosed like 3 times. We get stuck actually in Abu Dhabi. And back home, the company is like dying for money. I mean, we have nothing. But we have this thing that's just is destined to be successful. And we had enough to roll it out into 140 Target stores. So while I was in Abu Dhabi, and had I gotten home earlier, I would have signed one of 3 very terrible term sheets from almost bad people that would have taken my company in a very bad direction. And what happened was, I got the data from Target. Within 2 weeks of being on shelf, we had the number 2, 3, and 4, no, sorry, 3, 4, and 5 selling item in the entire baby set in all of Target. And then I got a call from American Express that said, we need you to come back and do voiceover work for your commercial. And I was like, I thought it was a video documentary. And it actually is a commercial. You can watch it on YouTube. It's pretty awesome. You can see my son. He's very cute. They put $50 million of media behind it. They played it before the Super Bowl pregame. They played it before they announced the Best Picture at the Oscars. They played it during the break at the Golden Globes. I mean, all of you guys have seen it a million times, I'm sure, but they played the hell out of it. And they gave me a link to it. And so when I got home, within 3 weeks, I'd raised $8 million from people like you, individuals, in 3 weeks with the Target data and the commercial. My dad was okay. And that year, 2010, we did 13.3 million in sales, so things started kind of turning around. And the reason I tell you that story is that this is another one of the lessons. If you want to win the lottery, you have to buy a ticket. When I signed up for this random competition that we had very little odds in winning, and look where it got us, you know. And granted, there was a lot of other stuff there that made it successful, but you've got to try everything when you're an entrepreneur. And I'll fast forward a little bit. 2011, we did 43 million. 2012, we did 62 million. Last year, we did like 93 million. This year, I'm looking at maybe 150. It's because of this. In a lot of ways, it's because we're innovative. It's because I think we're good people trying to do the right things for the world. And again, on Mother's Day, 2013, something very special happened this last year. I sealed the deal with a partner that now can help me take my dream to even bigger than the 150, and that's to be a $1 billion company in the next 10 years. So on Mother's Day, we announced a deal with Group Danone, which is the 2nd largest infant nutrition business in the world, and also very entrepreneurial business. And I had a lot of support from my friend Gary Hirschberg in negotiating a deal that would allow me to maintain a level of control and drive the mission of the business and still use their help and support to realize our bigger dreams. So I'm going to use this line that I used at the White House because my husband wrote it for a speech I gave there once. It's a little cheesy, but I like it. So in 2003, I very naively set out to change the world with my business. And fast forward today, I would say we've definitely accomplished a lot. We've given millions of meals to needy children in Africa. And we've certainly created a successful business. We even funded an orphanage this year. But I wouldn't say today that we changed the world. I mean, I can't say that definitively. I can say we're trying to. But what I can say with 110% certainty is that we are feeding the young minds that will. And I will just close with just a distillation of the lessons. So dream big. If you want to do something big, dream big. You guys are so talented and special. If you want to do something to make money, that's nice. But try to do something meaningful. Or do something to make money, but do it in a meaningful way. You have that option. You're the architect of the businesses you're creating. Third is, your ideas have power. Just as President Bollinger said, ideas have so much power. Honor them and honor yourselves. And then the very last, which you guys know by now, is that if you want to win the lottery, you have to buy a ticket. So, thank you very much.